Welcome to Spiritually Ignited Paradox Literary Language of the Heart Speaker Gathering. All our speakers are shared on our WhatsApp audio groups and our speaker channels. The link will be dropped in the chat. If you're listening to this recording and need help, we've got a way out that works. Please reach out and send us an email at connect@sipx.world and the crew will reach out and get back to you. First up, we'll read a section of the Big Book. Week to week, we go in order from page 1 to 164, and today we'll continue with the Doctor's Opinion, and Aaron will open up the share with that. Sure that I pass Aaron G from Los Angeles to take it away, to drop a message of depth and weight. Take it away, brother.
Thank you so much, Joey. Hey, everybody, I'm Aaron. I'm an alcoholic addict. Great to be here. I guess I'm just going to kick it off by reading from XXVi, Doctor's Opinion, for a couple paragraphs here. The physician who, at our request, gave us this letter has been kind enough to enlarge upon his views in another statement which follows. In this statement, he confirms what we who have suffered alcoholic torture must believe, that the body of the alcoholic is quite as abnormal as his mind. It did not satisfy us to be told that we could not control our drinking just because we were maladjusted to life, that we were in full flight from reality, or were outright mental defectives. These things were true to some extent, in fact, to a considerable extent with some of us, but we are sure that our bodies were sickened as well. In our belief, any picture of the alcoholic which leaves out this physical factor is incomplete. The doctor's theory that we have an allergy to alcohol interests us. As laymen, our opinion as to its soundness may, of course, mean little, but as ex-problem drinkers, we can say that his explanation makes good sense. It explains many things for which we cannot otherwise account. Though we work out our solution on the spiritual as well as an altruistic plane, we favor hospitalization for the alcoholic who is very jittery or befogged. More often than not, it is imperative that a man's brain be cleared before he is approached, as he has then a better chance of understanding and accepting what we have to offer. And I believe that is the end of the reading portion. All right. All right. Aaron, alcoholic, addict. Sobriety date is August 22nd, 2014. So this last August, I took 11 years of clean and sobriety time completely, no mind-altering substances. And I want to thank Everly for asking me to lead. Of course, she's a good friend of mine that I met in Zoom land. Very thankful for Zoom because I have people that I consider family here that were once strangers that I now can count on, and they can count on me for support. I want to welcome anybody that's new to this meeting, anybody that's brand new to CA or AA or any 12-step program. And even if you're on day zero and you don't have even a day of sobriety, welcome. That's a celebration too, I believe. If you're here and not out there, there's hope. Um, this isn't my first round of sobriety. I tried a few attempts to get sober, stay sober, and it wasn't until I really jumped into this big book, this program, this plan of action that's outlined in the big book with both feet that I've been able to stay sober one day at a time. And you know, I didn't really know what it meant to be an alcoholic addict. I knew I was one of those before I even got to AA or CA, but I didn't really truly understand what it meant. I didn't know really what I was dealing with. And I'm very clear today. I have a clear understanding that I have alcoholism, that I have addiction, and what it is. It is a disease, it's a progressive disease. It's fatal if left untreated. Um, and this section that we're reading here in the doctor's opinion um, is talking about the bodily aspect too. And I wouldn't even have to mention the physical aspect if I never even picked up drinking or drugs. There wouldn't be a physical aspect. Physical aspect comes about from once I pick up a drug or a drink and what happens to me, this abnormal reaction or this allergy. So it talks about while it centers in my mind, it's also a part of my body too, the allergy. But that's the whole problem is I don't, every time I tried to get sober, I wasn't able to stay sober. And those are two different things, getting sober and staying sober. Because if I stay sober, I don't have to worry about the physical part. The allergy doesn't kick in, and I don't get the phenomenon of craving, as the big book uses that terminology. And because once the phenomenon of craving kicks in, the way that I don't know if it's something I was born with, but the way I react is all bets are off. Everything else in my life, however important it is, goes second place, third place in order for me to fix or relieve myself of that allergy, that phenomenon of craving. And as it says in one of our readings we usually read in AA is many pursue it into the gates of insanity or death. And I certainly was one of these addict alcoholics that had to exhaust all options, all ideas before I submitted myself or surrendered myself to this process. The gates of insanity and death were open wide, and I was this close to jumping in. Fortunately, there was a little glimmer, a little flicker of light on the side, and that was a room of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I was graced with enough desperation to just go that way. It wasn't out of any virtue of my own. It was just out of sheer desperation and surrender. And I'm lucky. And I think anybody here in this room right now is lucky to be here. The fact that if you are sober and clean right now, not many people are going to even survive today from this disease. There's going to be a lot of people that fall into oblivion and don't make it. And here we are, you know? Um, so relapse is not a requirement here, and it definitely was for me, but I know people that came in even when they were teenagers and they've stayed and they're in their 40s now. They just stayed and they caught alcoholism and addiction in their ears just from listening to shares and being a part of meetings and participating. And they finally kind of admitted to their innermost self that they have this thing just by staying. For me, I'm a knucklehead. I'm stubborn. I'm closed-minded. And I want to prove myself to be an exception to the rule. Even though I know I have this allergy or this obsession of the mind in my head, I thought it can just go away by osmosis. If I just give it some time, it'll be like riding a bike. I'll get better at it. But that's just not the way this disease works. And some people don't like the word disease. You can call it a disposition because before I can even remember ever having a drink, I always had this nervous disposition. I was just a nervous kid. I even had bad habits like biting my nails and certain things like that. And once I found a drink or a drug, I remembered it just really relieved those symptoms. It made me feel a lot more comfortable in this world. I felt like I can tolerate this world more. And I felt like I could survive in this world as long as I kept the drug or the drink within arm's reach. And it worked for a while and it worked really well. Um, this is talking about the mind part of the disease and the body part, but there is also the spiritual part. And I love the title of this meeting here, and I love the intro too, Everly, just like with the weekend. But spiritually ignited. See, I suffer from a spiritual sickness, a spiritual malady. It uses the word maladjusted here. That's kind of where the word malady comes from. Malfunction, maladjusted. I have a spiritual ailment. And it manifested itself through me trying to fix what was going on the inside, that nervousness, that restlessness, that discontentment through external means, through the external world. It's going to be something on the outside that fixes my inside. So as long as if my money account is right, if I have the right girlfriend, or if I got the right job, or if I have the right mixture of drugs and stuff, it was always that was going to fix me. And those things worked. I heard a guy say they call it the big six: money, property, prestige, people, places, and things. I seeked those things to fix what was on the inside. And eventually I found that I don't just have alcoholism, I have not enoughism. I have a disease of more, this insatiable desire that will never be quelched. Um, it'll be fixed for a little bit, but then I'll always want more. And then that leads me to more isolation from the world. That leads me to more depression, more pity, more morbid reflection. and more drinking and more using. And and then I'm just left just waving my hand saying, it eventually led me to a balcony where I was going to take my life, and I'll get into that too. But before I do, I grew up here in Southern California. That's where I'm from. I'm still out here in Sherman Oaks, partly in Los Angeles, partly in the Valley. There was no alcoholism in my immediate home, but regardless, I still had these symptoms. I just felt uncomfortable in the world. And I think it was probably about seventh grade or so when I discovered the green alcohol, the marijuana. And that's kind of was my first introduction into getting that feeling or that escape. I don't even know if I liked it too much, but what I did like was the effect it produced. I liked that it gave me this little bit of escape from reality because I don't like reality. It's very uncomfortable. It's really scary. Um, And then shortly thereafter, I tried some alcohol at a party or whatever with some of my friends, and I like the feeling that effect produced too. I actually loved it, and but for me, it's like the phenomenon of craving part of this, that allergy, didn't kick in right away. I didn't just like have it. It was like something where people say they crossed this invisible line somewhere along their alcoholic career or their drinking or using career, and for me, it took some time before I actually had it to where I couldn't control the amount I took anymore. Um, and and also the obsession didn't necessarily kick in right away too once I used. Even though I did think about it quite a bit, it wasn't like that much. There would be times where I wouldn't think about it at all, but every time that I did pick up, it you know, it definitely was something that I just loved, and I wanted to pursue it until the wheels fall off, and I wanted to keep it within arm's reach because it felt safe. It felt like my protector. It felt like my best friend more than anything else in this world, drugs and alcohol. But there was a time as I grew up where I crossed that invisible line, and it was no longer this fun thing or this luxurious thing that I did. It was this necessity. I needed it. So I grew up in this kind of musical background. Both of my parents were musicians. My older brother is a multi-instrumentalist, and I ended up adopting that as something that I wanted to do with my life too. And I started off as a drummer and then started playing some keys and then started getting into some production. My dad had a studio in the house that we grew up in, and I was really blessed to have that. And he let me kind of utilize that. So when I was smoking pot and stuff like that, it seemed to kind of enhance that world of creativity for me. And it didn't just seem that way, it did. I'm not gonna lie. Like was mad creative, and I think a lot of artists from the 70s, 80s, like a lot of music was inspired by weed and drugs, and we can't deny that, right? And so I love that. I love that combo. Some drugs and alcohol combined with creativity, and I didn't never wanted to lose that. And I ended up getting into a place called California Institute of the Arts in my early 20s after high school, and I started studying music and jazz and world music. And then after that school, I went on tour with an artist, like some American Idol guy, and I was playing the keys for him and some stuff, and that was such a blessing. And I was like, dude, I'm doing what my parents did, and I'm loving this. But I had this thing where, somewhere along the way, I couldn't stop. I was trying to fix this feeling inside. I was always nervous. I always had this kind of anxiety, this underlying thing, and so I was the one guy on the tour bus. When we are traveling the world that needed that we would party the night before, but I would wake up with the bottle in hand. They had all the party favors on the tour bus, and I was the guy just waking up with it. And it was more to like I couldn't even make sound check without it. And the other guys were able to do it. They were able to just not even think about it and just be like normal, quote unquote. And for me, I needed to, get right. And they noticed that, and I started getting sloppy. I remember we had some big show. There's probably like 20,000 people were performing for it, and I couldn't even see the keys. I was seeing double, and I almost fell over on the on the chair, and it was like a big deal. Like, and I'm like hitting the wrong fucking. I was triggering samples from my drum machine and hitting the wrong trigger. It was just messy. And then I started getting in fights with some of the band members and the tour managers. I was just getting really reckless. And I almost lost that job. The lead singer of the group had to call my dad at the time and tell him, "Hey, your son, he's on thin ice. He's about to lose this." And when the tour ended, I got home and my dad was like, "Hey, if you nip it in the butt now, you're going to be fine." But he didn't understand that I don't know how to just nip things. As an alcoholic, I can't just stop without a sufficient substitute. He didn't understand that I was a real deal addict alcoholic, and I didn't understand it either, really, And he's just like, everything in moderation is fine. And I'm like, I don't even know what the word moderation means. I don't know how to do that moderation thing. I could be perfectly sensible in every other aspect in my life, but when it comes to drugs and alcohol and things that make me feel better, I don't know how to moderate. And that's no fault of my own necessarily. It's just how, I'm wired. It's nobody's fault for becoming an addict and alcoholic, I've learned, but it is our responsibility what we do about it and how we treat it. So after that tour, um, I got back home. I was living with my parents and I was still ripping and roaring. I was still trying to keep the party going. I was still trying to fix what was going on the inside through external means. That's how I was treating. And there is no chemical or material solution for a spiritual problem, I learned. But I had to go with that philosophy till the wheels fell off. And I was stealing out of my parents' like alcohol stash to find their little wine bottles. And I'm not even a wino, but I was drinking it straight out of the bottle in my room and just drinking full bottles of. And they had it saved for their special occasions. They weren't cheap. And here I was just selfishly trying to just go into oblivion and try to just control and enjoy my drinking. And I don't think there's such a thing as controlling and enjoying, but I surely tried. Um, they eventually were like, I got in a DUI. I crashed my car into two parked cars. They put me in jail for a couple days. And then I was getting in bloody altercations with close friends of mine. I was scaring the crap out of my parents. And at that point, it probably would have been a good idea to just like surrender to AA or NA or CA and just do this thing. But my parents threw me into a place in 2010 called Impact in Pasadena. And that was my first introduction into recovery. I went reluctantly because in my head, I was like, leave me alone. I'm going to figure it out. Don't worry. Just not right now. Tomorrow, I'll figure it out, but just leave me alone, guys. I got this. And I really meant that. But they're like, no, you're either out of the house or you're going to treatment. So I went for them to get the heat off. That particular place recommended to me 90 days, and I said right back to them, I recommended 30 days because it sounded way better. And you give me a recommendation as an alcoholic, I'm going to take advantage of that. It needs to be mandatory for me. It needs to be a must do. You give me that's a part of the thing where we say it's a suggestive program that I understand why we say that. But for me, I have to treat it like a must do. I have to, because I'll always take advantage of a suggestion. It's also suggested to pull the parachute cord when you're jumping out of a plane too. So I just want to throw that out there. Um, it's a must do for me. But at that time I was like, okay, and I saw the 12 steps on the wall. I saw the 12 traditions there, and I didn't deny it worked for you people. Like I wasn't like, oh, this is bull crap, but I definitely denied that for me that I needed to do that. Like I said, I want to prove myself to be an exception to the rule. I feel like I could just stay sober off step one. I could stay clean off step one, that I'm powerless over alcohol and that my life is becoming manageable, and alcohol and drugs. And there's a difference because that the part I didn't understand is I knew I was powerless at that point. Every time I picked up, I lost all control, but I didn't know I was powerless to stay stopped, left to my own devices. I still thought that willpower and self-knowledge would suffice. I really believe that. It made sense to me. If I just practice discipline enough, then, but that kind of life is miserable anyways, without a fellowship, there was a guy in the big book that stayed bone dry for 25 years without the fellowship. But even he fell victim to the belief that his extended period of sobriety would qualify him to drink or use like a normal person again. And right away, his carpet slippers came out with the bottle, and within 4 years, he died. So I don't want to be that guy who stays sober for 25 years without AA and CA and all that, and then just, you know, make it all happen in vain. So my first sponsor was like trying to stay clean off step one without doing the rest of the steps is like getting a membership to the gym and bringing in a chair and watching everybody work out expecting results. And I learned that eventually. He's like, step one is like the membership step. Yeah, it's a good step, but there's no solution in it. It's not going to fix you. It's not going to actually relieve you of this disease, the knowledge of that. The remaining 11 steps, because this is a spiritual program that's based on the 12 steps, the remaining 11 steps I found is where the spiritual exercise is really found. Step one is the foundational element that I need to admit to my innermost selves before going through the remaining 11 steps. But the exercise is in all 12 steps. So I have a threefold disease I learned through pitiful and incomprehensible demoralizing situations and through sitting in AA and CA and just listening to you guys and reading this, studying this big book and also going through it with a sponsor, word by word, line by line. I learned that I have a threefold disease: mind, body, and spirit. The mind part is the obsession, the physical part is the allergy, the abnormal reaction, and the spiritual part is that spiritual malady I talked about where I'm disconnected from, I'm trying to play God. I think sometimes I even think I'm God, and I'm trying to rearrange everything around me. And as if you would just do as I say, and if the world would just work the way I think it should work, and if you treat me the way I think you should treat me, all would be good. So it's all this thing about trying to seek trying to change the external reality to fix my internal reality, as opposed to fixing my internal reality so my external reality changes, which is what I found here in CA. And if I have a threefold illness, I need a threefold solution. And that's what I found in the triangle. At first, I thought the triangle was just a cool shape that you guys use in AA and stuff. And I was like, oh, that's cool. But then when I looked deeper into it with the help of my sponsor, he showed me that each angle of the triangle was an aspect of the solution. The unity part on one side of the triangle is what we're doing now in this spiritually ignited group. Awesome that we even have Zoom that we can connect all around the world. And it treats my body. Because when I'm here with you guys, I'm not out there doing crackhead things. I'm here doing sober things. I'm protected by my worst adversary, which is myself. I have that camaraderie. I have that family of understanding that I'm here with. So you guys are treating my body, but I could be in a meeting and my obsession can still be running if I'm not treating my mind aspect. And what I learned is the mind part is in the first 164 pages of the big book. But even more consolidated, all those pages are pointing to one specific page, which is page 59. And page 59 points me to the 12 steps. And the 12 steps point me to a power greater than myself, which solves my problem. And that problem isn't necessarily drugs and alcohol. That problem is in my head, it's in my thinking, it's in my mind. Of course, drugs and alcohol are problematic. I would never dismiss them as not being a problem, but they're not the problem. There's a difference between a problem and the problem, right? Alcohol and drugs are a problem. It's big. Bad stuff happens eventually. Maybe not right away when I pick up, but eventually all hell breaks loose and I lose everything worthwhile in life. Maybe you don't lose. Maybe you're one of these people that still came in here with three cars in the parking lot with your family intact, but you lost your integrity, your self-respect, your emotional well-being, and your spiritual bank account. You may feel bankrupt that way. For me, I came in here financially, spiritually, mentally, emotionally bankrupt, all of the above, but that's not a requirement. Rock bottom looks different for each person, but it is necessary to some degree to commence to do the kind of things that we do here. Because who wants to fucking, excuse my language, confess their shortcomings? Who wants to, you know, turn their will and life over to the care of God? Who wants to be of service without expecting anything in return? Who wants to do all these things unless their life is on the line? And that's what it was for me. Um, so recovery treats my mind. And it was the last thing I tried and the first thing that worked when it came to relieving me of that obsession. Because if I don't have the obsession lurking in the background all day, every day, then I don't have to worry about picking up as much because I'm not thinking about it. See, that's the cool part is when I isolate the 12 steps by themselves, nothing in the 12 steps tells me to stay sober. It gives me a bunch of other proposals that it says that if I do these 12 steps, I won't even want to drink or use anymore even if I feel like I need to. The obsession will be relieved. So that was my experience. I didn't even really even believe the steps would work. I just did them, kind of following them like a recipe for baking a cake, and I just followed through with them one at a time. as I kept attending meetings and kept contact with my sponsor in the fellowship. And by the end of it, my obsession has been relieved. And there is no end of it because I've continued to do it because the 12 steps says having had a spiritual awakening is the result of these steps. We try to carry this message and practice these principles in all our affairs. So it's insinuating that I continue. So does step 10. Step 10 says we continue to take personal inventory. It's such a bummer, right? Where it's like, oh, damn, can't this just be a 12 step and done and then we're good and cured? But no, this is a daily thing, kind of like how a diabetic has to treat their diabetes on a daily basis. As an alcoholic, for me to keep this obsession relieved and up in its cage, I have to participate in my recovery every day if I expect to stay sober, and even more so emotionally sober. Because my primary purpose today is to stay sober and help another alcoholic addict achieve sobriety. But the caveat there is I don't stay sober unless I help another alcoholic achieve sobriety, right? I can't keep this unless I give it away. That's why I'm so grateful Everly gave me this opportunity to carry the message because when I carry the message, it's helping me to stay sober because that's I'm doing my step 12 work, my service work, and that leads me to the third side of the triangle, which is the spirit side, the service side. It took me a while to figure out that AA and CA is not a self-help program, even though it seems to be. Helping others is the foundation stone of my recovery. So even if you have 3 days, you can help somebody with 1 day, just merely by your presence here, just by you identifying, saying you have 3 days. There's somebody with 1 day going, that person has 3 days. I didn't know how to get 2 days. So how do I get 3 days? So trust me, there's always something we can do to help, even if we're at what we think is useless recovery. A lot of people will be like, I only have 30 days. Dude, it took me so long to just get a few hours sober, let alone 11 years. So 30 days, 5 days, it's a big freaking deal. Even 1 day is a big deal. I didn't know how to, there was one point I didn't draw a sober breath for almost a year. I didn't take one sober breath. I was high and loaded all around the clock. And I was trying to get sober. I tried. I wanted to, but I can't stop. I want to, but I can't stop. I really want to. I have such a great necessity and wish to stop, but this thing got me by the you know what. Alcohol and drugs were my master. It was my master. But now I have this threefold solution, the Unity Recovery Service, the triangle treats my mind, body, and spirit. And the way that I really treat it now, and I'll get into a little bit more of my story because I know I stopped when at 2010 and there's more there, trust me. But when now that I sponsor people, which is that I have a working knowledge of the 12 steps, I have available time to take certain people through it word by word, line by line, just through the big book. I'm also available to give them my insight and wisdom if they need my help, but I don't give unsolicited advice ever unless somebody asks for it. But the main thing that I do as a sponsor is I take people through the book. And when I'm doing that, I'm treating all three simultaneously, all three sides of the triangle. Because when I'm meeting with my sponsees, I'm treating the unity and I'm also going through the 164 pages, treating my mind, and I'm being of service. I'm treating my spirit. So all three are being ignited. And so today I have a bunch of sponsees. I give them an hour a week at least, and we go through the book word by word, line by line. And it's just been the greatest gift because I came into AA and CA helpless and hopeless, and now I'm helpful and hopeful. Big difference, very subtle. This has been transformative though. Treating my spiritual malady, the mental and physical follows that. Because I don't come here to treat my physical and mental. I come here to treat my spiritual because I know once the spiritual is straightened out, the mental and physical follow that. Although, yeah, the mental and physical have been treated through me being of service, through me helping. I also have grave emotional and mental disorders, and I'll get into that too. And I've had to use outside means, but this isn't a mental health program, nor is it a physical health program. It's a spiritual program that helps the mental and physical part. So you guys have afforded me the opportunity to take care of my physical health and mental health through outside help. And I've had so many awesome transformations as a result of that. So They said 90 days. I said 30 days. I left that place and after 30 days and life seemed to be going good. I wasn't really following through with the program, even though outpatient was encouraging me to. I didn't get the sponsor. I wasn't going to meetings regularly. I wasn't jumping into the 12 steps. And I was able to stay bone dry for 10 months on my own willpower and self-knowledge. But then life happens, right? Life gets lifey. And without, unbeknownst to me, my dad got diagnosed with cancer. He was 59 years old. And within a couple months of his diagnosis, he took his last breath in front of my face in the house I grew up in. And I was really lucky to have a dad like I did. I was really blessed and I can't complain. And to this day, I'm just so grateful that I had the time I had with my dad. And not everybody can say that. Not everybody had a good relationship with their dad. So I'm really sensitive to that too. But my dad was incredible. He was my best friend. He was my ally. At times he was my nurse. At times he was my manager in music. I mean, he was my golf buddy. So to see him take his last breath in front of my face was not easy. And out of my own choice, I chose to not have a fellowship, a power greater than myself that I can pray to, literature that I can read and study to empower me, to give me assurance. I chose this to do it my way, to do it Aaron Anonymous, which doesn't work too well. And when they took him out in the body bag and I saw that whole process, as an alcoholic, my solution is to drink. It's not my problem, it's my solution to my problem. So those kind of emotions are really tough to deal with, right? And everybody has to deal with it at some point. And that's why it's so important and imperative for a guy like me to be in the middle of this thing, to have that support and to be always willing to ask for help and not be too prideful to tell people what's going on because I didn't have that at the time. So once I saw that, I jumped out of the house. I got a six pack of beer and some other special effects, some a baggie of this, a little baggie of that. And I had no intention on going on a bender, but I just needed to fix that feeling because I felt unsafe in this world. I had a resentment against the universe for taking my dad at such a young age, at so quickly without any warning. And so I did that and I took the drink and I took the drug. But what happens is what it says here, the physical part. We just talked about it in the doctor's opinion the abnormal reaction kicks into gear. And you may not be a kind of alcoholic addict that goes from 0 to 100 right away. You might be more periodic. There's such a thing. For me, I'm a 0 to 100 kind of guy. Once I take it, it's on party time. I'm gonna go and escape this feeling, and I'm gonna go into oblivion, and and one is too many, and a thousand's never enough. You've heard that. And so for that next year, every day, I'm just going, ripping and roaring, going, just trying to party and do this thing and just kind of avoiding all these feelings that I have. And I just can't stop. The allergy kicked in. And there was a period, what was it, 2012. So that was 2011 when my dad passed in May. And now 2012 comes around and I'm at a party. It's 10 p.m. at night. It usually starts off good. I've been to many parties like this, but this one stands out because I start off having a few drinks. I'm dancing, I'm grooving, and then I hit a couple lines of this. I smoke a little bit of that. And within a couple hours, I'm like crying hysterically. I'm in a blackout. I don't know where my shirt went. My shirt's gone. I'm just kind of yelling hysterically at the people in the party, kind of having a temper tantrum. And they're like, who is this guy? You're not the same guy that came to this party. We liked you originally. Now we don't want you here anymore. Get the hell out of here. And I'm like, go on. And then they throw me out. I'm in like, it's downtown LA. It's probably 2 or 3 in the morning at this point. And I'm just roaming around like a werewolf, like werewolf in downtown LA, right? Um, and the homeless people, the unhoused people on the street were seeing me in that condition. They were scared and they saw the cops and waved the cops down. Get this guy. He's crazy, And the cops throw me in the back seat. They're going, "What the hell is wrong with this guy? We got a place for a guy like you. He's in jail. It's a 5150 psych ward." And so I go to this psych ward for a few days and I'm in the hospital bed going, "What the hell happened? I came to this party, everything was going well. That's all I wanted to do was just party and have fun. And now I'm in a hospital bed, out of my mind. There's another guy across from me while I'm laying down in the hospital bed, and he's looking at me like this, and he's like, "My name's Aaron too." I swear that happened. I saw his name tag, and it didn't say Aaron. I was the only AA Ron up in there, I promise you that. And I'm like, get me the hell out of here, dude. So I'm going, get me out of here. God, I'm doing that alcoholic foxhole prayer. Like, get me out of here. I'll be good. I won't drink ever again. I'll never do this. And within a couple days, my buddies pick me up from the hospital. They already have a bottle in hand and a pipe ready to go because they know me. They know how I roll. And I don't even think twice. I go, thank you. Let's do this. And within a couple weeks later, I'm back in treatment because my mom helped me get into treatment. Thanks, mommy. But she's like, you got to go. She found a cool spot for me. This time I ended up staying a little bit longer than the last place. This place I actually did 90 days. I got the sponsor too this time. And I was like patting myself on the back. I found a cool sponsor. He was another left-handed drummer. I was like, oh, this is a sign from God, you know. He's left-handed, he plays the drums, he's funny. I could dig this. But it says in chapter 5, it says, half measures avail us nothing. It also says, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. It also says that some of us have tried onto our whole old ideas and the result was nil until we let go absolutely. And that word absolutely used to fly over my head. I never really looked. What does that mean? Absolutely. Let go, absolutely. It means completely. It means with complete abandon. We talk about the word surrender a lot, but it's nowhere to be found in the big book or the 12 and 12. I invite you to look for it. Surrender is not found in there, but there are terms like let go absolutely, complete abandon, abandon yourself to God. Those are all expressions of surrender, which it talks about admitting complete defeat. Like that word complete is another one of those. That means 100%, not 95%. Complete, complete and utter defeat, which I hadn't admitted at that point. At that point, I had just admitted defeat. But so I'll tell you why. So I got the sponsor, I got the step 5, and then eventually I had to leave that treatment center because they don't let you stay forever. And I thought it was my sponsor's job to reach out to me and to keep me sober. Like he's my advocate. He needs to. And so I stopped kind of reaching out to him and expected him to kind of like loop me in. And I don't chase my sponsees. I invite them to call me every day. I invite them to hit me up, but I'm not, maybe if I don't hear from them for a while, I'll check in. But for the most part, that's not my job. And I thought it was his job. So within that period of time where he wasn't hitting me up and I wasn't hitting him up and I did step 5. I had a good idea come in my head. I hadn't let go of my old ideas, and the last good idea was California sobriety, which is marijuana maintenance. Because I was like, I'll give up the alcohol, give up the cocaine, I'll throw that out, but you're not going to take away my little creative tool, dude. I could, if I just do this and not do that other heavy shit, which seems to be where the big consequences come from. That rationale, it's an ancient enemy of human beings, is rationalization. And alcoholics and addicts are great at doing that if we let ourselves. And I don't need a drink or a drug to screw up my life. Rationalization can screw up my life too if I don't come back to AA. I could mess up my life sober, but that's why I need to treat this thing because it's about my thinking, it's about my rationalization. It's so cunning, baffling, and powerful. I have an alcoholic mind and I have a forgetter in this mind. I won't get into the isms as I usually do, but one of the isms is incredibly selective memory, is insanely short memory. So if I'm not constantly coming back here and identifying as an alcoholic addict, I'll eventually forget that I have this thing and think that a drink or a drug is a good idea again, and that somehow I can get away with it and beat the game. I can't do that. I'm not allowing myself to do that. I can do that, but I won't allow myself to do that. And the only way I can not drink or use no matter what is if I do AA no matter what. People say accept life on life's terms. I don't know what life's terms are. Do you guys know? Did you guys get that manual? Please tell me. If you do, I'll give you my number. Text me what life's terms are. But you know what terms I know? I know what AA's terms are, and I can live life on AA's terms. And AA's terms have worked so freaking well for me, and that they're not even that tall of an order. But so I ended up smoking weed um, successfully, quote unquote, for a year without doing anything else. And I was feeling like, oh, dude, I'm getting away with this. This is great. And during that time, I built up a bright outlook for my future as a music producer. It was a dream of mine to get signed as a producer and to be working with big artists and stuff. And I got signed to a major label. And in August 2013. Signed the contract. A couple weeks later, they gave me more money than I ever seen before, and I was on top of the world. And I told myself, I do not want to sabotage this. And I know that the weed may screw this up. So the other ism is I sabotage myself. I have a black belt in self-sabotage, right? I can mess up anything that's good in my life if I don't have you guys on my side and a power greater than myself guiding the show. If I'm running the show, I'm gonna run it to the ground every time, and I surely did. I threw out that weed and I swore off forever with a solemn oath. I said, I'm never gonna smoke again. I want to honor this deal. I want to honor my dad's life. I'm gonna do this, and just with my knuckles together. And 2 months later, I ended up using again. I picked up because of a resentment. Resentment is the number one offender. I am doomed if I have some form of hate that creeps up in me. I do not know how to hold on to a grudge tightly for a certain extended amount of time without drinking or using or screwing up my life. I need to learn how to master those resentments. This big book taught me how to master resentments. Thank goodness. I tried Buddhism, I tried yoga, I tried hiking, I tried going to the gym, I tried rigorous, all these other activities. Something about this particular process of the 12 steps is the thing that works uniquely tailored for an addict alcoholic like me when it comes to relieving myself of anger. Because I have to be free of anger. And it even says the grouch and the brainstorm is the dubious luxury of normal men, people. I don't have that luxury, period, whether I like it or not. These are things I have to accept. Doesn't mean I have to agree with it. Acceptance does not mean agreeing. It just means I no longer can resist this reality. Even if I don't agree with it, I just can't resist it. I have to embrace reality for what it is, the reality that I have an alcoholic mind that demands treatment on a daily basis. And I wasn't willing to accept it. So at that point, I picked up the weed card. Now I had a bottle of Jameson, a bottle of Jack Daniels. I was drinking about a handle of Jack Daniels a day. So my disease had progressed to that point to where within 2 months of that relapse, I would lock myself in my room. I had high-powered sedatives like Ambien, Valium to get to sleep. Now I had money and where I can afford all the drugs I wanted. And by 2014 New Year's, I went into full-blown psychosis. There was no more music in my heart. There was no more even identity of Aaron as this music guy and this guy that has this dream ahead of me. I went out of my mind. Something snapped in my head. And this may not be your story, and please don't listen for the differences. We get here on a different boat, but end up on the same ship because we're so different in many ways, but we're cemented here. We're bound together through the common solution, the common problem, and the harmonious action. It's not the story that the same story where we're different, but we have similar things that cement us together. Three ingredients: common problem, common solution, harmonious action. Those are the cement ingredients. So, anyways, I go out of my mind. My mom sees me in that condition. She gets scared shitless. I've never heard somebody scream that loud. And she was my best friend. She still is to this day, but she was scared of me seeing me in that condition. She climbed out the window of the house and called the cops on me, got a restraining order on me, and then threw me out of the house. And then with the money that I had, I ended up just going from motel to motel, hotel to hotel. And then I went to about seven different treatments that year in 2014. But since I was out of my mind, I wanted to end my life because I just ruined that job that I worked so hard on since I was 6 years old as a musician to get this job, and I ruined it. And now I spent all that money from hotels and drugs and alcohol, and the last bit of money I spent was to jump off a balcony and take my life on the 16th floor hotel of the Marriott Hotel. And I stayed there for a couple days, and I kept trying to muster the courage to jump, and I kept trying to. I just had no integrity. I had no more music or love or heart or soul. And I just wanted it to end. And I'm glad I didn't kill myself. I would have been killing the wrong person. I would have been killing a complete stranger. I would have just been killing a stubborn, untreated alcoholic addict that was unwilling to do the 12 steps. What a shame, right? Because I'm no longer the same guy as I was on that balcony 11 years later. Today, I've been free of that balcony for 11 years. Because what happened is I finally admitted complete defeat. So no more Burger King recovery, no more having it my way. I jumped in with both feet. There's three different types of people in this room right now. There's ones who have admitted complete defeat. Two, there's people that admitted defeat. And then three, there's people who have no idea what the hell I'm talking about. So complete defeat is where it's just complete surrender. There's no more doing it my way or trying to figure this out in my head or think my way through it. And my last treatment center was August 21st, 2014, place called New Life, and that's exactly what I got was a new life. Even though they let me stay there for a year. So this time I said I'm not leaving until you guys kick me out, pack my bags and throw me out. There was no more 30 days, 90 days. I said I'm here to stay and I'm ready to do this even though I was full of shame and full of guilt and I had no sense of safety in any direction. I had no sense of solid ground. I was having night terrors. I was a full-on insomniac at that point, and I couldn't sleep. They put me a bunch of medication, but I surrendered and I accepted that this is what I need to do. And I just had to trust that this works for you guys and stop worrying about the results and stop worrying about the outside stuff. And that's what I did. I got the sponsor while I was in there. I got through the steps in 6 months. They ended up letting me stay there for a year. Now, surprisingly enough, that place had a studio in there, a music studio, built in the 1970s that they utilized for clients to reconnect with music, to reinvent themselves, or just to discover a passion in music. And I ended up jumping in there. I couldn't even pick up the drumsticks or play the keys. My hands were shaking so much. But I jumped in there, and the guy that they utilized there, another producer, was helping out the clients, and then I ended up kind of starting to reconnect with music. And after a year, that guy left, and I ended up taking over that position as the music producer, and I started helping out the clients, and my mental faculty started coming back. And after 2 years there, I started working there and getting paid there, and I ended up producing stuff for myself in that studio within the sober living. One of those things I produced what ended up on a record, R&B record that went #1 in the country. And if you're new, you're probably like, oh, good for you, Aaron. But I just say that to say this, that AA will meet you where you're at. CA will meet you where you're at. If you listen to my story, I was going to jump off a balcony in full-blown psychosis. Nobody wanted me around, but you guys kept saying, keep coming back. I had a restraining order from my mom. Since then, that restraining order has been off. It's been taken off after about a few months, and now I have the keys to our house in my pocket. I have a host of friends in AA and CA. 90% of my phone is 12-step people. The other 10% are colleagues, acquaintances. I have freedom today, freedom from that balcony, freedom from the obsession. I don't have freedom from problems, but I have freedom from problems controlling my life. They do no longer control my life because I have the tools. And the last thing I'll say is there's three big words here. There's the God word. You don't have to worry about the God word. Just know that you're not it. Power greater than yourself. The second word is we. We admitted. We do this together. And the third word is help. And I might go over like 10 seconds, but help is the biggest word for me. And there's a lot of platitudes, there's a lot of cliches, there's a lot of acronyms, but I came up with one myself recently. And when I look at the word help, I see that there's an H at the front and a P at the end because my higher power exists at the beginning and the end of the word help. And in between is the EL because that's where everything lives. Everything lives in between my higher power, in between the help. And if you're willing to just ask for help, because we're not mind readers. The hand of CA, the hand of AA will never fail. We can help you with car problems, with other psychiatry problems. With like, there's brilliant minds in here that can help you with whatever problem you're dealing with, aside from sobriety. But just be willing to ask for help because there's only two alternatives for an alcoholic addict like me. That's oblivion or spiritual help. But if you ask for help and you're willing to jump into this book and you want to do this the way I do it, I'm willing to help too. It just, it's the most amazing thing that's ever happened in my life, and I just have to do it on a daily basis and keep surrendering, keep admitting complete defeat, and keep doing this thing. And the best days of your life are ahead of you. I promise you that. Even if you're young, no matter how old, this thing works. I love y'all. Thanks for letting me check in. I can't wait to hear from y'all at some point. Put my number in the chat.